And a very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Attitudes. My name is Jeff Owens, director at WEIU TV and Radio. My guest today, Dr. J. Gatrell from Eastern Illinois, our president, my boss. How are you doing?
Pretty good. It's always great to come back and talk about not only what's happening in Eastern, but around Coles County. So thank you for the invitation.
Appreciate you being in today. Let's first talk about the school year just kind of wrapped up, in May, and just talk about some of the great stuff that happened for the class of 25.
Well, obviously commencement's a wonderful day, but we've had some real successes. Our women's basketball team was really strong this year at the OVC conference tournament there in Evansville, and lots of positive things around volleyball. Going to have we'll launch a new facility in August as a season opener that we're pretty excited about, returning to McAfee Hall. And we've made a lot of progress on a number of issues across campus, whether it's roofs or planning for the new science building or the tunnel project that's going to be happening. We're actually about to launch a new fiber loop to improve sort of Wi-Fi and overall sustainability of that network, because a lot of our fiber is sort of one directional. A loop will provide continuity and flexibility. If something happens, you cut a wire or something. Yeah. So that's pretty exciting. Baseball and softball had amazing years.
Yeah, they did real good.
First year coaches
from
Paulson.
Mattoon, by the way.
Yes, they are. I figured you just did an amazing job with those young women, and really proud of what they've done. But Jason Anderson, yep. Once again, getting it done. And it also goes to show you never know what's going to happen in a tournament.
That's exactly right.
And, I'm proud of those young men, too, and Jason's leadership and the way he sort of developed that program, in large part with a pitching ethos. Yeah. And we, of course, know our outstanding alums now who are in
three in the majors,
playing MLB baseball, and that's really something. It's a point of pride. But all in all, the year was a great one. Lots of positive things to happen. We're exploring new programs. One of the things you might have saw in the Daily Eastern News is the notion of an associate's degree program as sort of a way to honor the work of our students and provide them with a credential on the way. Lots, I think, innovative things are emerging in the higher education space to meet the needs of really all stakeholders, not just our students, but also the workforce.
I know you've been really behind the science building. Where are we at on that, and give us an update?
Well, I've seen lots of visualizations. We have the facility. We've moved it about a couple hundred yards off of Roosevelt towards the Tarbell to tie into the new tunnel initiative that'll begin. That'll actually save us millions of dollars, which is always a win. That project's moving forward, and we feel really good relative to the greenhouse, the facilities, the equipment. The plan is moving forward, and I would anticipate we'll have 101%. I didn't know there was such a thing as 101%, but apparently that's a thing in government projects. And so once we have those drawings, we'll be able to go out to bid and have that bid process and select a builder to finish that project out. I mean, it's been, this concept was, I think, 2008, 2009. The notion of a new science building was sort of a priority for the institution. 2019, it was appropriated, and now here we are several years later, finally getting to the point where we're going to go out to bid. But it's so exciting. The level of support from the state for capital projects has been tremendous. In fact, obviously, when you plan a project in 2008, and end up building it in 2026, 2027. There's a lot of inflation there, and the governor's office and the IBHE identified resources to do some of that inflation, and that's, we were worried that the project might not have a greenhouse because of those inflationary factors, but I'm grateful that the governor saw and the governor's team saw the importance of that, and the IBHA supported sort of using some of their monies to inflate that project. Okay,
you talked about this tunnel project last time you were on as well, and I mean, so it's been ongoing a little bit, and so the next phase is ongoing now, or how is that like?
Engineers have been on campus in the last probably 45 days, and we anticipate that we'll start opening up ground and replacing sticks and caps and all that stuff. All lingo I didn't know was a deal, but I've learned a lot throughout this process. But that project should begin in earnest in the next 90 days or so.
Okay. But there's also, we talk about all the news going on. There's, the state of Illinois budget, how it affects EIU. Talk about that, please.
Well, first of all, state budget, I think Politico's reporting it'll be signed today by the governor. Yeah. We're not quite sure. That's always a process. But the General Assembly approved a budget that had a 1% increase as well as an additional 2% in reserve. That sort of maps to where the governor's budget address was in February. He has been a tremendous supporter of higher education. Him and his team understand the value of investing in institutions like Eastern, so I'm grateful for their support, but it's going to be a tight year for the state relative to revenues. I think we know that nationally. It's not just Illinois, it's just the environment we're in. So as revenues, whilst costs increase, right, overall, inflation's a real thing, and revenues may either lay flat or perhaps lag in some areas. We're going to have to figure out, how to meet the needs of the region. And the governor's been really supportive. So whether we get 1% or 3% on the back end, we'll make it work. We always do. Our team is really committed to serving our students, but the good thing is we're getting an increase. You may remember there was probably 15 years where all we saw was year-over-year decreases. Yeah. So any investment in Eastern is an investment in our mission, our students, and most importantly, our community. So I want to thank the entire team in Springfield for supporting higher ed, but also supporting our neighbors here in Coles County.
There are some distressing news out of Washington, D.C. with some possible federal cuts coming, including some that could affect WEIU's facility. Talk about your concerns there and what that means for Eastern as a whole, because it's TRIO, child care, fisheries and aquatics, and Pell Grants are all kind of lumped into a scary situation.
Well, I believe politics works. I'm an optimist, and I believe that good folks, when you have policy discussions, are willing to come to the table. I just got back from D.C. Last week, where I met with folks on both sides of the aisle, and by and large, all of our representatives and senators understand how important the Corporation for Public Broadcasting is to a region like East Central Illinois. More importantly, understand how important it is to the learning experience of our students. I mean, we can all have differing opinions about what that funding level should be and so on, and that's something for politicians to do. But my opportunity to go out there and tell the amazing things you all do in this building, but also what TRIO does, supporting learners and making sure first-generation students and Pell-eligible students are able to be successful and have the academic supports they need to be successful in real time. And every learner needs different resources. So there is support for those programs in our delegation. Had a wonderful conversation with Senator Duckworth and Senator Durbin. I believe Senator Duckworth might soon be on one of your stations here.
We are working on getting her to an interview. It's just her timing and working with her people. We're hoping we tape this on Monday if you watch on TV, but live on radio right now. We're hoping for Tuesday or Wednesday for the recording, and then we'll get that on the air almost immediately.
But the conversations I had with representatives were overwhelmingly positive. I feel they understand the need. They also understand the value proposition of higher education. Higher education is the engine of social mobility. It's an engine for economic development. Dean Bauer, former dean of Doug Bauer of education, used to have a saying, and it really resonated with me. And education is economic development. If you don't have strong schools and strong universities, you're not going to have the economic impact in your community that you want. And we certainly are the anchor of economic development here in Coles County. We play a significant role, not just for our neighbors, but for the entire state. Our overall contribution, we did that last economic study, over $370 million of impact a year. We bring more. The activity associated with Eastern is $7 to $8 million over what the overall appropriation is in terms of tax generated for localities in the state of Illinois. So I think the ROI is there, and I think if you tell the story and you make it real, people will support it. And I came back from D.C. really excited about some of the positive conversations I had, and just impressed by the ethos of service that our congressional delegation truly has to the state and their constituents.
Are there going to be other EIU projects this summer that maybe people will notice to take note of before the fall semester gets here?
Yes, there's some projects down in housing. We're doing a bathrooms initiative in terms of upgrading both for aesthetics but also some functionality. We're in the beginning phases as we presented to the board at the retreat and then at the public session when we talked about how do we begin looking at renovating our housing stock. Do we go to the bond market? What does that look like? How long of a bond? So we're really starting to have in-depth conversation about next steps, about reinvesting in places like Thomas, and revisioning sort of what's the next iteration of physical sciences once the new science building, or integrated sciences is what we're calling the integrated sciences building. Once that's built, what will be our investment and plan for that physical sciences building?
When you get to engage with parents, what's the kind of the Dr. J. Gatrell's approach when you see a parent and you go up to them and you introduce yourself? Do you have an approach or a style that you like to use when you talk to parents and students?
Well, I usually say, "Hi, I'm Jay, and welcome to Eastern." I don't really say I'm the president.
Okay.
You know, and they ask if a parent or a student asks me, sort of, what is it about Eastern that makes it special? I don't know if I've said this before on this show, but it really is, we're a human-scaled institution. Right?
Yep.
Where you get to know your professors, your advisors, the administrative assistants, and the people who make it, the good work happen every day, and they get to and they care for you. Right? We create a community of care. We want to know who you are. We want you as a student to be successful, and because we're human scaled, we're gonna know your name. We're gonna be able to deliver on that prospect. Not every institution has the capacity to do that. I still remember the time we had a transfer day, and I came into WEIU about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and there was a kid who wasn't yet enrolled, who was a transfer student from a nearby institution, and he was working the cameras for Newswatch. I mean, you can't do that at all institutions. It takes a lot of commitment, effort, and paying attention to make those opportunities available to learners. And you can do that at Eastern on day one. And sometimes the opportunities to be at the desk and anchor Newswatch, that may be something you only get a one-semester opportunity to do at a larger institution. But day one, you can be a reporter, you can be a contributor, and you can be on that desk doing really cool stuff that your peers wouldn't be able to. So our superpower really is scale, right, and relationships.
And in actuality, we have a student who's starting this summer that hasn't taken a class at Eastern yet, but is enrolled for the fall.
And I would say the same is true.
And he's driving almost an hour here because he wants to.
And the same is true for Daily Eastern News. I remember Luke Brewer, before he had enrolled, he was always already writing articles as a recent graduate of Charleston High School. Those relationships, those opportunities are something that make us special. And the other thing is, look at our outcomes, right? Yep. Our students go on to have amazing careers and opportunities, whether it's our placement rate to graduate school, whether it's continuing to be one of the institutions in Illinois of our size who have students go on to earn doctorates and law degrees, at some of the highest rates across the state. So, lots of reasons to be proud of the work we do, and lots of reasons to encourage others to tell our story. And when I meet a parent, I tell them the story. And I've also told the story at open houses of running a half marathon and having someone at mile 11 say, "Dr. Gatrell, let's run it in," right? I mean, there was no reason for a student to want to know who I was. And this student and I ran in the final 2 miles of the half marathon, and it was special. And it was special because, she recognized me, she connected, and at some point over the course of her career here, I made a difference. And I hope we do that every day for students across campus. Yeah.
Enrollment's always a concern. Or how are you looking? How are you thinking we're going to look as we look for fall 25?
Well, first time, full time is looking really positive. So high school graduates, the data as of today are positive. We've sort of figured out FAFSA. We now have a system that works. We have deadlines that work. And we're ahead of deposits from last year. Our housing deposits are up. Our housing contracts, our housing payments are up. Lots of really good stuff in terms of first-time, full-time, traditional age students. The challenge is, full transparency is going to be international students.
I was going to ask you that next.
International students, today's environment, for a variety of reasons, and once again, I'm not a decider on this, but accessing visas, how you get visa appointments, the timing, all that, it's going to be a challenge for our ability to convert and grow international enrollments. In fact, I would suggest we're going to have fewer international students here in the fall than we did in January, and fewer than we did in last fall in September. So
If you've talked to the international students, you understand the process is absolutely mind-boggling what they have to go through to try to get to come to Eastern Illinois or any other university in this country right now.
It's complex, but this is a situation that's not only impacting Eastern. I talk to my colleagues across the state and across the nation. We're all having the same conversation, right? What does this mean for the institution? What does it mean for our programs? And how can we make sure we continue to be the destination of choice? The U.S., the destination of choice for the world's highest performing students. This is about talent. This is about talented students who want to learn, live, and work in the U.S. And so I'm always going to be an advocate of folks who want to make a difference and have impact. I understand there are different philosophies and concepts out there about how we do that and what's the mechanism, and I hope we figure it out. But I want to make sure students who want to learn at Eastern can and do.
How do we, as a university, keep up with technology that's rapidly changing? Everything is, you buy something that's already old. How does Eastern kind of work through that?
Well, we finally have a strategic IT plan. That was part of Plan 2028 was to develop that, and so we have a replacement cycle. So we have a replacement cycle for every CPU on campus, from a laptop to something in the classroom. So that's part of it. And I have been strategically focused on identifying new technologies. We're gonna launch somewhere between 7 to 10 new hybrid classrooms with owls. That's sort of an updated version of the old hover cams we had during COVID. And they're much more dynamic pieces of equipment. The software is amazing. And so we're always scanning the environment. ITS, Ryan Gibson and his team really have a sense of what's out there, both in terms of projection. Increasingly we're moving to TV or monitors as large scale monitors versus projection. But you're right, technology changes so fast. You can't keep up. But you need to make sure you have a plan to replace, and I'm pleased to say we have a plan to replace now. It's sustainable, and more importantly, we have the funds to do it. Plans without funds and commitments are just dreams.
Write that one down somewhere, right? So when you think about Dr. Jay Gatrell's, vision for the university, if you look forward in what you would love to see in 2, 4, 6, 8 years, can you talk about some of those dreams?
Well, obviously, I want to make sure we're in a financial position where we're stable and where our revenues meet our expenses. That's sort of job one. That's any leader. It's important to focus on your budget resources and being realistic. What I want to see is a campus that is more dynamic, that is well maintained, that has some signature new investments, whether it's the science building or the recent investment we made at baseball in terms of new skin on the entire facility, new dugouts, and that we're continuing to make progress on deferred maintenance. And that progress is visual, because students want to go to an institution where they know there's a sustained investment in place and people. We do an amazing job in investing in our students and making sure they have the resources to be successful. And I'm really been focused over the last 2 years with that facilities reinvestment initiative and the office study that's going on is how can we make sure we're investing in making sure the facilities meet our students' expectations. So having the technology and the facilities that are necessary to recruit high-performing students. They have laboratories that are better than their high schools. Yeah. Those are the pieces that are front and center. Because I'm convinced if we continue to focus on relationships and student success, and we invest in our infrastructure and buildings and facilities and grounds, and our grounds crew has done amazing work over the past 2 years. It's not gone unnoticed how beautiful campus is, and so, those two things will result in additional enrollments. The international piece, obviously, I'd like that to be resolved, but in the next 18 to 24 months. But I think if we continue to invest in our infrastructure, in our campus and physical plant, and maintain our commitment to students, we're going to be fine. Regional comprehensives are different than they were 30 years ago. The competition has changed. The nature and structure and role of regionals has changed over that same period. And we're just going to have to right-size our facilities to reflect that. Because if we right-size it, we reduce our deferred maintenance, and we're able to invest more in the student experience. And little things like the chairs on the quad. That's part of the student experience. I mean, nothing makes me smile more than when a colleague, snaps me a picture of a student in those Adirondack chairs.
Oh yeah.
Because it means students are using it, but more importantly, they consider it a place that people want to hang out. That library quad is the heart of campus, and the more students I see in there, the more excited I get.
How do you make sure that EIU is maintaining its position as just being really part of the community, not just our campus, but part of Mattoon, Charleston, Coles County, and even East Central Illinois?
Well, it's obviously we have a lot of members of our administrative team, faculty, and staff who are on boards across the entire region and are leaders in their communities. So that's one piece, is we're giving back through our service, we're giving back through our leadership, but we're also connected through Charleston Can. We're engaged. We have a member on the Emerald Acres, maybe two members on the Emerald Acres Advisory Board of our community. Amber May's one of them.
Yep.
So I think we're engaged in key initiatives across the entire community. Evan Kubicek is the
great guy, yep.
interim director at Elevate. We're engaged in those pieces and giving back through service, but also resources. We made a commitment from the university to support Elevate, right, through staffing and providing an opportunity for Evan to do that work. Our Small Business Development Center, we're partnering with Lakeland down in Effingham to have a site there, and that's a significant investment annually in both staff as well as resources to grow local businesses. And our Small Business Development Center is also housed in Elevate. So I think we're trying to make strategic investments in community-based resources to make sure we're able to give back. And the other piece, I have the distinct honor and privilege of serving on the board of Sarah Bush Lincoln. And Sarah Bush Lincoln that entire system has been so supportive of the university, whether it's our nursing school, the Gail and Dick Lumpkin School of Nursing. They have an outstanding Sarah Bush Scholars Program, which funds amazing young nurses from across the region.
And that campus grows so much out there; it's unbelievable.
Oh, it is amazing I've learned so much about the healthcare industry, but also about how to finance debt. I mean, I've learned a lot of weird things sitting on that board, but I'm also able to give back to my neighbors and figure out how can Eastern support you, right? And whether it's CUSD 1, right? We're looking for ways to connect with school districts, with other organizations and nonprofits across the region.
We're talking to EIU President Dr. Jay Gatrell today here on Issues and Attitudes. One thing you have to do, I'm assuming, in your job is you also, not everything is always, roses and butterflies or whatever that saying is. But how do you handle conflict and a disagreement between maybe people? How do you get involved to solve that problem?
Well, that's a tough question.
I know,
and I thought these were only easy questions.
Well, it's the insight into you. What I think people like, it's how you solve a problem, which is actually a good thing.
Well, I mean, some of the best advice, well, actually two pieces of advice I've gotten over my career. One is everyone just wants to get their needs met, and if you realize that a conflict is really a two individuals or two organizations having slightly different perspectives on how they're going to get their needs met and whatever those needs are. And everybody's perspective is valid. They're different, and they may, and you sort of have to, and it's important to listen, because you can learn through that process of listening and understand it really is about meeting a need, whether it's for the organization or the academic unit or the individual. And so if you start with the notion that everybody's an honest broker, right?
Yeah.
That's an important place to start. What are your needs and how can I can't do this, but maybe I can do this. And so not that, but how do we get to this other thing to get the same outcome? I always try to find an alternative, right? And that's the negotiation piece. And so that's one. And the other piece is, I'm also cognizant is that nobody cares if I have a bad day. Right?
Probably, yeah, you're right.
And so, when we have tough sort of situations like you described, I have to be positive. I have to think about how can we resolve this in a way that benefits the university, that makes sure we continue to do our important work. And, and I have a role as a leader to make sure everybody's been listened to, They know they're valued. And even if we end up in a space that they're not happy with or that they didn't want to go to, that they understand there was a process that was fair, equitable, and not in any way intended to be punitive or problematic. But you can't do that if you don't listen. And you can't do that if it's all about making sure my date's not bad, right? Because nobody cares if I have a bad day.
But do you have bad days?
I probably do. I go run a little bit more, right? I mean, that's part of the deal.
But you are a very positive person by nature. I think that you stay positive and you're always, shaking people's hands and talking and well seen in the community.
Well, I mean, first of all, I love what I do. I love being in the community. I can't think of a better place to be. And you have to enjoy the work and you have to enjoy people. Because every organization is really about its people. And we have amazing people from students to staff, faculty, and administrators.
Are you happy about the fact that EIU has maintained that a very safe campus the last few years? I mean, because for a while there, we kind of got a bad reputation of a couple of incidents. It seems like lately that has all changed to EIU Safe Campus.
Well, yes, obviously. I mean, our partnership with our whether it's Coles County or Charleston, our mutual aid agreements, those pieces, but more importantly, having a safe campus, is critical as a parent, right? I know it's also critical to our international enrollments because perceptions of crime, those are things that are viewed differently in other parts of the world. So I'm happy we're a safe campus. I'm also happy we're a campus where you can make mistakes and also we have a developmental approach, right?
Yeah.
Because this is where people grow up. This is where learning happens, right? And we have to have a space that allows for folks to make bad decisions, right? But and healthy decisions and encourage those healthy decisions. But when a student makes a decision that doesn't work out, we also have to have the resources to support them, right, to still be successful. That's what colleges do extraordinarily well. And the fact we're a safe campus makes it even more possible.
Have a minute left today. Anything else you want to talk about from your point of view? Or I can ask you silly questions if you want.
Give me a silly question. Okay, go for it.
Your most famous person you've ever met?
Oh, golly.
I know. You ask.
Wow. Ever met? I'm going to go with Conway Twitty.
There you go. Conway.
When I was like 6 years old.
Tony Romo and Sean Payton, but Conway Twitty.
Well, I've met them. I've met Tony, but I was going with something different.
That is, yeah, there you go. Your worst class that you took in high school that you couldn't stand, was there a class you just did not like in high school?
Fortran.
There you go. Your first car?
My first car, 1971 Mustang with lots of Bondo.
First pet. Last question. Your first pet.
Babe. She was a dog.
There you go. Well, thanks for coming in. We appreciate you taking time of your summer to come in on Issues and Attitudes, Dr. Gatrell, and we appreciate all your support here at WEIU.
Thank you.
Everybody, we are WEIU. Have a great day.